And we are on. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to another historical happy hour. Tonight, I am thrilled. I have two guests. I think for the first time, I have two guests on. So you guys are like debut novelists, Jenny Judson and Danielle Mahfood, and their new novel, The Last Season, has just came out almost exactly a month ago. And it's just this delightful Victorian era story. It's a perfect escape novel for right now. I am going to give a little intro and then start in with my questions. So The Last Season is a collaboration between Jenny Judson and Danielle Mahfood, who met in high school and shared a mutual love of historical fiction and romance novels. Instead of passing notes in class, Jenny and Danielle would write short excerpts from imaginary novels that featured themselves and their classmates as characters caught up in tales of romance and adventure. That is amazing. Many years later, after cheering for opposite teams at Harvard-Yale games, they came together in New York City to begin writing The Last Season, inspired both by the Victorian period and the financial crisis of 2008. And just a couple quotes from Booklist. Judson and Mahfood immerse readers in British high society, blending Regency romance with Dickensian themes of reinvention, unrequited love, and unexpected benevolence. And Pop Sugar says, if you love a juicy Victorian era story of forbidden love, then The Last Season by Jenny Judson and Danielle Mahfood deserves to be at the top of your to-be-read pile. And I agree. Welcome, ladies. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks.
Thanks
We're
for
excited
having
to
us.
be here.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
cheers. I guess we should say cheers. It is a happy hour show.
Cheers.
So, cheers. So first question, tell us all about the inspiration for The Last Season, the history that inspired this story and the basic premise for it. I'll hold that to the camera.
Okay, I can take this one.
Okay.
So what inspired us? So you read that earlier that Jenny and I went to high school together, and so we took a particular class, which was a kind of a human physiology class. We're pretending to be doctors, dissecting hearts, doing all this crazy stuff. Yes, it was pretty amazing. Pig hearts, not like
right. yeah.
Yes, and actually, so but we got bored pretty easily in that class because clearly neither of us ended up being doctors, and so we, Jenny started writing these notes, but the notes were actually like little novellas, which featured me and my crush du jour as when I was the heroine, and it was very, very cute. And so this kept on for many years. We parted ways, went to different schools, and came back together in New York City. And actually, we went to go see the movie The Young Victoria, and it was a long time ago, 2009. And afterwards, we kind of walked out of there, and I looked at Jenny and I said, "We're going to write this book." And really the period, the Victorian, so we marched right into Barnes & Noble and looked at the historical fiction romance section and saw that there were very few Victorian novels. There was a lot of Regency, there was a lot of Tudor England. And, we were really kind of inspired by the story of Victoria and also the period, because it's really quite a modern period. It's not, if we were writing about Regency, it's quite far back. This is a period that inspired us, that we enjoyed. There's trains and telegraphs and lots of communication, and so that's really what sort of drove us to kind of choose the particular period.
We also, it was so close to 2008 and everything that had happened with the Great Recession that we really wanted to find something in the Victorian era that would speak to that. And so as we were, as Danielle said, we were at Barnes and Noble's kind of like looking at various things about the Victorian era. We then went home. We had this big decision, or Danielle actually had been like, we're doing this. So she had made the decision. We go to our separate apartments, and I started thinking about the story, and I called her up. I said, we need to find a financial crisis that occurred. And, at the time we didn't really know about this, but very quickly Danielle located that in 1873, there had been a great panic, a financial panic, which, it mirrored in many ways what had just happened. So we're like, okay, that's our time. We're going to frame everything around that.
Oh, so interesting. And you just answered my second question, because I'm always curious why historical fiction authors choose the era that they choose to write about. And so it was for all the reasons you just mentioned, right? And I also read that like you're fans of like as I am, Downton Abbey and some of those PBS shows. Like, yeah, excellent.
But Downton Abbey wasn't around when we were writing, so
okay, yeah.
I think it came out after we started.
After we started.
Yeah, so you guys were like the trailblazers with
that.
Julian Fellows kept calling us up. And
I know. Well, but yeah, well, there exactly. He's gonna see this webinar. He's gonna be like, yeah.
If only.
If only. I know. For me too. Like, so the story is about two kind of star-crossed lovers, Cassandra and Crispin. They meet as children and then are separated. And the story stretches across time and distance. And Crispin is a stable boy at Cassandra's father's manor. And he's basically exiled to India to make his way in the world. And I loved the descriptions of the settings during this, particularly India, but all of them, like they were so vivid. And tell me about your research for setting and what kind of research, and were you able to do any travel to any of these places that are in the book?
Yeah, so with India, I mean, I had been to India for 10 days for a friend's wedding. So, but 10 days is nothing.
Right.
But it gave me like a taste, and I definitely would love to go back many, many times. But we also, because the time period is fairly well documented, and you can find all sorts of resources that are saved from that time. So we wound up, particularly for the India sections, we found some primary sources, particularly a book of letters that was this young man who had gone to India, and he was writing about his experiences there. So we were able to sort of read through these letters. I was like, oh, this is what he saw and felt and smelled and all of those things. So that was useful. We had similar luck with primary sources when it came to the investment that is, again, central to the story. Danielle found that one.
Yes, yeah. So we actually, obviously we both did research separately and together, but I will say with India as well, just honestly, just Google searching things, found a lot, lots of sort of essays and documentation around the railroads in India at the time, because there's that, he works at a railroad company, and so that was great for those descriptions as well. And then yes, I mean, I work in the financial world, and I was just shocked to be able to find the prospectus, or what was then called the offering circular, for the investment for the Union.
Oh, amazing.
The Northern Pacific Railway, and it was amazing. It was literally the prospectus, and I was shocked to see the kind of language they used back then, which was, oh, it's the best deal ever, and you're not going to lose any money. Highly inappropriate language. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so Danielle's in finance and I'm in education. Danielle reads the prospectus and she's like, this is terrible. And I read the prospectus and I'm like, this sounds great. Like, I'd invest. And she's like, no, you wouldn't.
Oh, that's fascinating. I love, I think that's why you're probably drawn to this too. I love the research aspect of writing historical fiction. And when you find those, it's like treasure, right? You find like those original source materials like that, it's the best. And I asked about travel, but I also often say, like, it's not like you can travel back in time to India during that time. Like, you have to find it like context and people's perspective when they were there then, not now. So yeah, that's amazing.
You can also find maps too, which is fantastic. The sort of old maps where you can get a sense of place and how things were laid out.
Yes.
Also, regarding your travel question, the manor, Drayton Manor. Yes. I worked at a school right after college. I worked at a school. It was called the Bryanston School in England, and it was a Viscount's manor that had been turned into a school, and that actually became the model for their house, their manor.
Oh, very cool. I love that. Yeah, very, very cool. So another scene that I love that was so vivid to me was like at one point Cassandra is presented to Queen Victoria so she can be out in society and the pomp and circumstance of that. And talk to me a little bit about like that kind of aspect of the book, that part of the story?
So, well, I'll start. We definitely had to research a lot about titles and how people address each other. And so actually, I remember very vividly, like Jenny and I debating this, and I said, no, I've looked it up and I found 3 sources that say that she's the daughter of a viscount, which means she's not a lady, she's the honorable.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there is such specific information around this, and there's the book. Well, this one's more of just a kind of a book out there. I always get the name wrong. It's like what Jane Austen ate and Charles Dickens knew. There's a book called What Jane Austen Ate and Charles Dickens Knew, and it's literally a primer of the time period. So it'll tell you this is the title, this is the way that they would have been addressed, etc. So that was actually really good for setting the context for us. Like, this is the kind of furniture you would find in the Victorian household. This is the sort of, so that was really helpful. But the presentation at court scene, that was another Google search, right? I had found, and I think I found that one. I don't remember if you, and it was just like digging and digging and digging, and there was a written description verbatim of how someone would have been presented. And you actually, if you are a Downton Abbey fan, when she's presented, what's her name again? The blonde.
Sybil.
No, not Sybil. Not Sybil. When you see the presentation, the cousin, the niece.
Oh, right.
Rose.
Yeah.
Rose.
When Rose is presented, there's that, it's like the throne room and everything. And what was interesting about that is the Earl of Grantham is there, right? But actually at the time, men didn't go in the throne. They weren't there. It was just the lady. It was just the sponsoring, mother, aunt, whatever, that would, go into the room with them for the queen, to see the queen.
So interesting. Now, are either of you Bridgerton fans? Did you watch that at all? I mean, it's a little trashy, but they have that scene. They have that scene too, where they presented at court to the queen, and they're wearing the feather. You mentioned the feathers in their hair, which that was a detail I didn't realize that was a thing. Like the feathers. Yeah. So
the queen was into feathers that year.
She was super into it. That's like, no, she insisted upon the plumes and the feathers. And she also, even like the, we like, there's just, we're describing her fragrance, which was just like her signature fragrance. Apparently she doused herself in it. And that's what all the accounts say that she did. And so, but anyway, yeah, it was super fun to research.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the best kind of stuff. Those little details, so much fun. So did you have some favorite authors or books in high school, since you've known each other since high school, which I love? I'm good friends with a number of my high school girlfriends. There's like 6 of us. What were some of your favorite authors or books when you were in high school?
So we're both Jane Austen junkies. That absolutely. And I think in high school, there's like high school and then there's life, right? So like Jane Austen all the way. I think we both love, some of the books that are classic. Great Gatsby, love that. I'm a huge Charles Dickens fan. For years, I would like right around the holidays, I would kind of curl up with a big Dickens and try to get my way through it. And I do reread A Christmas Carol every year, even
me too.
now.
Yeah.
So we yeah. So, but then also, I mean, like we had some contemporary things that we like Philippa Gregory, right? She was in high school. Yes. That was part of our, we were reading that.
Love
Pride, I will say that, like, of all of the Jane Austens, Pride and Prejudice is definitely like the one for us. And actually, so it's interesting, as the book launch began, as the book came out, I started getting pretty nervous about all these events. And the way that I calm myself down is by watching the BBC 6-part miniseries.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
But I'm literally with my phone and my AirPods in bed at night, and my husband's sleeping, and it's like he wakes up at 2 a.m. I was like, "What are you doing?" I'm watching Pride and Prejudice.
Oh,
and it's the only thing. It definitely calms me down.
Yeah. Now, do you like the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice? Or are you partial to the other one? No, not so much. Okay. I like both.
Look, I'm never going to turn down a chance to watch Pride and Prejudice. Never, never, never. I actually didn't mind I can't remember the name of the guy that played Darcy. I thought he was fine.
Yeah.
I think I was bothered by Keira Knightley. I just didn't, she was not Elizabeth to me.
Yeah. Well,
in a way,
especially
I
if
think,
you're partial to the BBC one, I think that, yeah.
Wow.
So
it didn't, somehow it's like, I guess we're purists or something. Like it didn't quite match. I had actually been before. Do you remember before the BBC one with Colin Firth? There was actually a prior BBC one that I remember watching, which is definitely, it's the technology has improved. So if you go back and watch it now, it feels very, very old.
dated. Yeah. I had heard of that other one, but I've never seen it. Yeah.
I mean, I might have to see it just because it's another rendition of Pride and Prejudice.
So a lot of people like to hear about process. So tell me about, especially I'm so interested myself because I obviously have never written with someone else before. So tell me about your research and writing process and how you navigate working together. And you probably heard the terms plotters versus pantsers. Like, do you plot it out before, or do you write by the seat of your pants? How do you delegate? Like, I'm so curious about this whole thing. Yeah.
I've definitely, it's funny in like paying attention to writers and what they're doing. I feel like I've heard the like plantser, plotzer
Yes, yeah.
words being used. We might be a little bit of that, in that we would come together, talk about the plot, have sort of a rough sketch of what we wanted to have happen. And we sort of knew the basic arc to the story, but we didn't know the details. Along the way, we got to know the characters. Things changed because we started to kind of fall in love with certain characters and want to go in different directions. But essentially we'd plot together and then go and kind of do our assignments, write separately.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And then we'd come back together and, well, Danielle, I don't know if you want to talk about coming back together.
We would read it aloud to each other. So we wrote everywhere. Like we would meet up at each other's places. We would just we didn't even have Zoom then, right? So we were using like Skype. I mean, all this, like we would every possible, technology to talk it through. And what we would do is we would read it out loud to each other. And that was kind of the way I think that we adopted each other's voices in a way. The other thing is that the book was originally conceived of as a 3-person narrative from the first person, interestingly. And obviously it's no longer that. So it was 3 narrators, 3 first-person narrators. And over the course of the many years we've been working on this, we changed it many times. Yeah. But it was easy in that sense because, Jenny took one voice, I took the other voice, and then we split the third. But then then we decided to make it into 3rd person, and kind of it just all changed. But by then we were basically writing almost the same. Like we sounded the same when we wrote.
Right, you got the rhythm and the voice down and all that. Yeah. Because I know, I mean, Heather Webb does it. Like a lot of people co-write books, and I can't imagine. Like, now, this is my next question. Like, did you ever have fights like about the plot or characters? Or, I mean, and if you did, like, how do you resolve that stuff? Like, I mean, I don't know. I get very kind of like passionate about certain aspects of story. Like even with my editors, I'm like, so.
I think, so the basic answer is no, we didn't have any creative, like we never came to creative blows. And that's, it was, I think part of it is that it did start as, it was in a way, it was sort of like half a joke, half serious, right? Like it started in high school with this sort of joking passing of notes. And in the high school yearbook, I had left a note to Danielle in the yearbook that said, like, I'll dedicate the first trashy book to you. And so like we kept going back and forth about this in this joking way. And so I think we didn't take ourselves too seriously. And that meant, we could say like, I don't think that works, or let's do it this way, or, so it did not get tense.
Yeah, between each other, it never got tense, but with the editors, absolutely. Like when you see with the editor, like, you're like, I will tell you, so actually Jenny might have forgotten this, but I'm gonna bring it up, because when we started writing, Jenny started writing in the first person, and I did not like the first person. I never liked it, because it took me so long to get used to writing in the first person.
Mm-hmm.
And And as it turned out, of course, we wrote the whole thing in the first person narrative, and then we switched it around. But I will say that like we went through a lot of heated debates over the course of the years about that between first and third person. Sorry, I just said you went off for a second.
I know, I'm sorry. There's something with the camera that it tweaks sometimes. I apologize. Didn't mean to throw you off your game. Yeah.
Anyway, no, but so I would say that's probably the only thing we ever debated was first versus third person. But I mean, I'll tell you, the editors, they would come to us and say, no, you have to cut this, you have to do that. You can't have the, like we had a prologue that we were very attached to. I mean, extremely. I loved the prologue, and they were like, scrap it. It doesn't help.
I know that prologue's a tough thing. A lot of editors and agents, frankly, too, that do not like the prologues. Like they have very strong opinions about those. Yeah, that's interesting.
It was the right thing to cut it. I mean, I think ultimately it was the right thing to cut it, but I still, even now, I'm like, but I think it was like one of the best sections.
Oh.
I want to bring it back.
So what is your favorite part of the writing process, and what is your least favorite part?
So I'll give the favorite part for me, and this is just it's an escape for me. So when I'm writing, so it's like I often tell the story of how like I would be traveling for work, and I'd bring both laptops, my work laptop and my personal laptop. And after I put my work laptop away, I'd go to the bar or the restaurant with my glass of wine and write. And it was so cathartic. Yes. I absolutely love that part of the process. Just the chance, the opportunity to like just come up with, the characters, describe what they look like, and just lose yourself in the story. So that part I love.
Yeah, like a whole different part of your brain than what you're doing at work. That's amazing.
Yeah.
How about you, Jenny?
In terms of, I guess I would agree very much with the stuff that I like, that, when I sort of like close my eyes and picture the world and then try to write what I see inside. I tend to write by hand sometimes, which my handwriting's getting worse and worse. So it's not working very much anymore. But like I like kind of almost the slowness of it, where you kind of go slowly through the scene and really get into it. I think the hardest thing, editing, and we did a lot of editing. I mean, I think we did 2 really massive edits from where we overhauled the whole thing. And one of them was the changing of the narrative perspective, but then we did another edit after that was huge. And it just it takes time. It
does. Yeah. And that kind of major overhaul, my first novel, which also took me many years to write, was I had to change it into past tense from present tense. And it was like so painful and tedious, the whole book, like all 260 pages. Like,
oh God, that is painful.
It was painful, honestly. So I totally relate to that. And and so on that note, I think that one of the things I've found among authors is, in terms of published authors, is persistence, right? Like, and so because it took me many years and many rejections before I got the Saturday Evening Girls Club published. And so what advice do you have for writers who are not on the other side of it yet, are still like trying to finish the manuscript, trying to get an agent, trying to do all the things? Like, what advice do you have?
Keep going.
Keep going. I guess don't give up, right? I think the benefit of having a writing duo is that we're each other's cheerleaders, right? I know that doesn't work for everybody, right? But yes, it's been a really long time, but we took off like 6-month breaks. Like, Jenny got married, I had a baby, I had another baby. I mean, like there was all sorts of stuff that happened right in that time. And so I just feel like pick yourself up, keep going, remember why you're enjoying this, why you're doing it, right? And that's what will bring you to your goal. And then the second thing is, don't take yourself too seriously. Because I suppose if someone, at least for our book style, this was fun, right? It's an escape. We couldn't possibly take it that seriously. And so, I think it helped us move it along.
Yeah.
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 And feel better about those rejections.
Excellent. Yes. And yeah, that's right. I mean, I think especially the first novel, it's like you trying to do it in the fringes of your life. So of course it's going to take time because it's like you're working or you got kids or you got like all other stuff going on. So like I admire your persistence because I know like anyone who makes it like who did
Yeah.
this, like it's huge. It's a huge, huge thing to get this published, you know?
Having a creative partner, like whether it's your writing partner, like we were writing it together, or just having people that you almost are accountable to. I mean, that was one of the great things. Danielle is an excellent project manager. I wouldn't have gotten any pages down if she hadn't been like, we're meeting on Saturday and we're doing this. And I think you
Awesome.
need that structure. For a lot of people, not everyone, but I think many people need the structure. And I think sometimes having other people involved help give you that structure.
Right. And I think it also makes you take it seriously enough that you'll take the time, you know, like that you'll give yourself permission to work on it rather than like unloading the dishwasher or like whatever that, you know, interrupts you. I had I was freelancing for Boston Magazine, and I still have my like 3 women that I was working with there that we shared pages in those days, you know, in those early days with each other. And it's so important because like you said, it makes you accountable. It makes you think, okay, I'm doing this for real, not just for myself, you know? So yeah, totally agree.
That's the other thing that we did is actually, we had a little event last night. And it was funny because the 2 people who first read the book, they only read part 1, were there together. They have not been together in a long time. And it was really interesting because, you know, we basically said, we're going to write whatever it was, 70 pages, and then we're just going to see what somebody else thinks. Right.
Oh, nice.
And we picked 2 people, one who loves the genre and one who's more of a creative type. And so they both read it, and interestingly have the exact same feedback.
Oh, interesting. That's always a sign.
They're totally different. Yeah. But the most important thing they said to us was don't give up.
Yeah. Yeah. Persistence.
Keep going.
Everything.
Keep going. Yeah. And that really helped us kind of take it to the next level.
Yeah. And take it seriously. That's amazing. Is there anything that has surprised you? The novel's only been out a month. So what has surprised you since it's out in the world?
I think surprisingly is like talking about it, right? Like I think all of this and sitting down with other people talking about it, that's been very surprising. I think even in the lead up to it being published, I guess we started to become a little bit more aware of the greater writing circle around, and a little bit more connected to what's going on with writers out there and how they support each other. Actually, it's very supportive. I was surprised to hear that there are all these writers out there supporting each other and you know, wanting to talk about books, wanting to, you know, give shout outs to each other, whether it's on Instagram or, you know, doing podcasts and stuff like that, that's been great.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Dogs.
We all got them. That's okay.
So I think, so I would agree. It has been surprising to talk about the book, to market it. Like, I mean, in my job, I do a lot of marketing, right? But it's not this, right? It's not marketing me. It's marketing my company. It's, you know, that part feels different. But then I would also say, you know, at this event last night, like literally the most wonderful moment was that there's a woman there who I'd never met, right? And she said, "Oh, I read the book." And I said, "Really?" And she said, "Well, yeah, you know, I actually heard about it through XYZ, you know, because she's really interested in books, and she was, you know, I think it was Pop Sugar or Katie Couric. She was like, you know, I heard about it through that. And so I had it on my list in my Kindle, but then I got invited to this party and I decided to read it before the party because I wanted to make sure I read it before the party."
Oh, so great.
It was such a wonderful thing to hear. I was like, my gosh. I mean, people are reading it, which is wonderful. I mean, but I think that a little bit, you know, scary, and you know, because it's scary, right? Yes. It's been ours, I mean, for forever.
Yes.
And then it went out in the world, but it went out to an agent, which is different because that person's in the business, or a publisher. Yes. That's different. They're in the business. So this feels, you know, a little overwhelming, like, difficult, revealing,
And
whatever the word.
emotional, right? I feel like it's emotional. I remember like with the 70 Girls came out now and people said they read it. I'm like, and you're not in my family or like my and you actually like read it by choice. That's amazing. You know, like,
That was actually our reaction to, there were a number early on when we were sending it out to people. Actually, first when we got our agent, she got back to us and she said, you know, she was interested, and then she gave us some very specific commentary on it, and we're like, oh, she read it. Like she actually read
it. You're like, wow.
Yeah. And the other thing is when you get like the reviews, right? Like the people, you know, were looking at it and doing the reviews, you know, professionals, and that part's also just bizarre, right? It's somebody who actually reads books for a living, not just like someone who's sitting on a beach and wants to have an escapist read, which are cool, and that's great. That's what it's for. But then I'm like, wow. Jenny and I are looking through these first reviews over like in the late summer, and we're like, they liked it. Like,
I know it's like it's so, it's like amazing, and then it's so weird and like a little emotional, and then like I don't, it is, it's the fun, like when that first happened, you're like, oh my God, it's like out there to strangers, you know, like that I don't know. Yeah, but oh, that's so great. Just to add about the author community, I totally agree. And that was a surprise. And like, I'm still like, people are, I think it's because everyone knows how hard it is to get a book out into the world. And this industry is tough. Mm-hmm. And I am so like moved by how supportive other authors are to each other. And I just went through some professional changes and in new book stuff. And I had to reach out to some authors that I barely know, like through friends of friends of friends, and they're like, yeah, just call me, I'll give you advice, I'll tell you what I think. And I'm still blown away by people being so amazing. I love that aspect of this industry, you know, that authors support each other so much. So
I mean, like, you know, I would meet somebody for the first time who happens to be an author, mention that, oh, I have a book coming out, like, because it's so weird, I have a book coming out.
Yeah,
it sounds weird to say, like, right
yeah.
Out. And you know, like person would say like, oh great, like I'll totally read it, I'll blurb it, like, can I help you with this, can I help you with that, let me get you something. And you know, I'm literally meeting the person for the first time, no context. It's amazing.
So nice. Yeah, so lovely. It is. So the epilogue left some interesting kind of like possible openings for a sequel. Is that something like, what are you working on now? Are you working on a new project? Or are you kind of taking a breather? Or what, like?
We have ideas. And I think actually this was like year 4 of this writing process. So it was a while ago. We did have a moment where like, well, we really like this character. There's Archie is sort of the best friend of one of our protagonists, and I think both of us started to really like him and think he was interesting. So we thought, well, if we do another one, maybe we'll do it about Archie. And I think in the back of our minds it was there, but it hasn't been until now that the book is out and we're talking about it, and we have gotten that question, like, what are you gonna do something? And it's becoming more real. We actually in the car the other day, we were driving to an event and we're talking about like, okay, well, should we do this? And what should we do? And what would that be like?
And so fun to do it with like one of your best friends. Like that is really cool. Like to be on this journey together, that must be really, really fun.
It's fun, and it's also fun for our other friends. And that's what's been so fun. Like as we started, like our high school friends, like when we, you know, began the social media marketing journey that we're on, which is kind of terrifying because we're both not social media people.
Yes.
You know, we kind of put a call out to our high school girlfriends. We said, like, can you guys dig up any photos, like take a photo of a photo with your phone and send it to us. And it was so fun, and we kind of, everybody just got excited about it. And it's I mean, when we were on one of those IG lives the other day, and you know, the people, there's like, as you said, like just, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 people on there. I don't even know who was on there. But there are like, you know, some of them were our friends, and they were like messaging us.
Oh, so great.
They were just so excited. They were like, this is awesome.
So cute. I love it. So if anyone has questions, For Jenny and Danielle, you can put them in the chat or the Q&A. I'm looking at both. We've got some questions already. Before I take questions, do you do virtual events with book clubs like Zoom or FaceTime or are you open to that?
Totally.
Absolutely. We
Okay.
would love it.
Yes.
We would love it.
And what is the best way readers can get in touch with you for that and kind of just stay in touch with what you're doing? What's the best way?
So we have a website. It's DaniandJenny.com, DANI and Jenny.com. And you can email us through the website. There's a link to email us, and we check that email very frequently.
Perfect. Okay.
So that's a great way to reach us. We're also on Instagram at DaniandJenny.authors.
Yes. Excellent. Okay, so questions. Let's see. Oh, Anne Marie says, sending love to all of you. Anne Marie is this amazing publicist that we all share at Get Read PR, Anne Marie Neves. Sending love to all of you. I'm hopping back and forth between this and school Zooms. So hello, Anne Marie. And Christine Mott she's in Texas, and I don't know if Christine has missed a historical happy hour. She's amazingly supportive. So she's got a couple questions. Did you come up with the title of the book? This is a good question. Or did your publishing house come up with the title?
We did. It changed over time. It was not the original title.
Okay.
And so the original title wound up on the cutting room floor. We were given a whole host of suggestions. We weren't quite sure. I think at one point, Danielle's husband didn't he go into GoDaddy and bought
a URL
for a totally different title.
Well, just in case.
It's that was not it. Well, and then ultimately this one kind of kept percolating, right? It came up, it went down, we thought about it, we cut it, we came back to it, and ultimately for us, it seemed to capture this idea. It's a coming of age story, and it's a story of rising and falling fortunes, and it's also a story where things, one door closes, on a life, and there's also, at this time, this sort of social world we're writing about, there were a lot of seasons, the hunting season, the social season. So it wound up, it kept touching a lot of points of the story, but this was not the first title.
It wasn't actually. So it was funny because my husband and we were away for a weekend with some friends, and everyone had a couple of glasses of wine, and we all started to debate what the book title was going to be. Everyone was no one had read the book except for me who had written it, and they were all, including my husband. And so everyone was oh, this is what it's going to be. And that's after that, everyone decided on this one title, and that's the URL that he bought. Oh, and then he was but ultimately, interestingly, as Jenny said, this one went back and forth, but the publisher made the final call, right? They were okay, this is the one we're going with.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Titles are hard. I think they're really tricky. Yeah. And then what about the cover? Did you have any input into the cover design? I love it. Right.
The cover might have been the most bizarre process I've ever gone through. I mean, really? It was because it was I think we had a very clear idea in our minds of what we wanted. It was super clear.
Yeah.
And somehow we kept talking, we kept saying to the publisher, this is what we want, but it wasn't really quite coming back that way. And so at a certain point, we literally wrote an incredibly prescriptive email, you need to do this and this and this in this place. And I think we ended up with, a cover that we love, but it took a long time.
Yeah. That's also super hard because you think of people see them as a thumbnail. You want it to kind of capture, and it is when you have something in your head and then they show you something completely different than what's in your head. You're what is where is this even? Yeah, crazy. So
we have a friend who's a graphic designer, thankfully, actually, and I showed it to her. She had some thoughts, and then she kind of walked us through. She's okay, here's what you need to do. You need to print it out, draw on it what you want, and because there was a lot of back and forth, so it took a while.
Yeah, they're tricky. I always tell this story because my husband's in marketing, and he has a really good design sense, and so when we were doing the Beantown Girls cover, they did a historical photo shoot. And so they sent me the models that were going to play the three main characters on the cover. And So they sent me the models and like their portfolio pictures and to see what I thought. And I sent them to Charlie, and he was like, he called me up immediately. He's like, they are way too hot. They're too smoking hot for red. Like, what is even going on? Like, these girls are too hot to be. And I'm like, I think they're gonna style them. I think it's gonna be okay. But I called my editor in a panic. She's like, it's fine. We're gonna style them. But like the other day, I was like looking through his Instagram. I'm like, who is that model? He's like, oh, that's Fiona from the cover of the Beantown Girls. I follow her on Instagram.
Oh my gosh.
It's so crazy. So yeah. And I got like, they sent me, when they finally did the photo shoot and did stylize them, they sent me like 300 photos of them on like a green screen, and we're like, pick the top 10. So my like daughters and husband and I, we just like went through all of them, and it was like, yeah, it was a
That's
process.
exhausting.
It was exhausting.
That kind of reminds me of our book photo, like when we like the pictures of us for the book, you know, the inside of the book.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, that process took forever. Like, we had a professional photographer take pictures.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, there's two of us, right?
Right. Oh, and then you have to agree, like what you like. Yeah.
That might have been, we didn't get into a fight, but we definitely did not agree on any of those.
I mean, it was more a problem with me, because when I take a picture, like I cannot keep my eyes open. So Danielle takes like an awesome picture, almost like 90% of the pictures of Danielle, eyes are open, great picture. 90% of the pictures of me, eyes closed, funny expression.
Yeah, I do that too. I'm always blinking. I know. Yeah. There's a couple more questions here. And this is a good one. Susan Moore is another longtime fan. You're so great. So she asks, did you ever see the 1940 film version of Pride and Prejudice with Greer Garson and Laurence Olivier? If so, what did you think of it? I have not seen that one. Have either of you?
I haven't. I feel bad that I haven't. I might have to watch it over the Thanksgiving holiday. I haven't
Laurence
seen
Olivier? It sounds fabulous. I think I need to see that.
Now I'm feeling like I need to track that down too. I didn't know. I had no idea. Someone, Christine says, I love the movie with Greer Garson. She's one of my faves. And you have some really nice compliments about, I can't wait to read this, Elisa. And Holly says, a wonderful, entertaining happy hour. Thank you. I can't wait to read the book. So ladies, I think this is a good time to wrap up. Thank you so much. This is delightful. So fun, just like the book. So the last season, great escape. You know, it's just really fun read, and I love all the details and the romance. So yeah, good attitude.
I have one here too, actually.
There you go. Yeah.
Is this the moment where we hold up the book?
And Sue, my librarian friend, Sue Nakanishi says, I bought the book and started reading it the other night. Enjoy tonight. Thanks, Jane. So thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Sue. All right, ladies. Thank you so much. Keep in touch.
Thank you.
You guys
that was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.